Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, along with Dexter, wearing his Raider gear. And, of course, Dexter's favorite Uncle John in the whole world, John Shop, joins us. Now, before we get started today, John, I had Dexter joining us because we are giving away a pair of – Dexter's talking. He's trying to reach out to you, John, and touch you. All right. So, and he's like, wait a minute, what's going on here, Dad? All right. So, we're giving away a pair of Air Force Ones. So we told everyone there were 3 criteria. You had to email us your name, address, shoe size in 1 sentence as to why you thought you deserved the shoe. Now, we had a ton of people that sent us Facebook messages, Instagram messages, Twitter messages, but we said to be email. Then we had some that said, oh, by the way, here's my address or here's my shoot. No, we said it had to be 1 email per email address. So we had 1,942 emails come in for the shoes that were eligible to win. So Shannon, why don't you get in here with me? So say hi to everybody. By the way, she's rocking another Raiders shirt. Hang on.
Hello, everybody.
Show your Raiders shirt. There you go. Oh, now you disappeared. Okay. So Shannon, between those numbers, what number would you pick?
I am choosing number 8 because we have 8 kids together.
No, you did that in the exclusive, so pick another one.
I have to do another one? All right, number 129.
Why? Oh, I know why. Dexter's birthday.
There you go.
All right, so number
29.
1. All right, go print it real quick. So she's going to print email number 129, and then I'll read it on air, and he's looking at Mama. You can go with Mama. All right, here we go. All right, here, grab Dexter.
Come here, Bubs.
Let me grab this off. John, I'm grabbing this off the printer. This is not a high-class operation.
Hey, it takes what it takes. The printer is good.
So, here's the winner is, dear Mr. Hondo, I want to say I don't deserve nothing, but I would love those shoes as a Raider fan and an orderly in the medicine world. I could use those shoes. And being a single dad, I don't much spend money on me but my kids. Love the pod and listen every day cleaning the rooms. Win or not, I love what you do. Arnold in Stockton, California. So Arnold, we'll have your shoes going out. Now he's a size 11. All right, we're going to have your shirts going out probably Monday or Tuesday, Arnold. But to all of you that email, we're going to be doing some more giveaways. I kind of like this, John. I think this is a lot of fun. What do you think?
Everybody likes giveaways. It's kind of fun, and it passes the time in between weeks when the Raiders are playing. So yeah, this is the right time for this kind of stuff. There's no bad time for it.
No, it's no bad time to give stuff away. And what made me think about it is somebody gave me a pair, and everyone was like, that's so cool. And I thought, you know, I'm going to give a pair away. I just want to give a pair away. So here we go. All right, you just texted me.
I did?
I just got a text from you.
Oh, okay. That's a delay. That's a delay of game on the text message system.
All right. John, we got so much to talk about today. A lot going on with the Raiders. My first mock draft is out, but I want to get into some very specific Raider talk because I think it's very important. There is a danger. Now, wait a minute. I want to go back because that's not, I want to start with the positive. If you can find a generational quarterback, Peyton Manning, a Andrew Luck, a Patrick Mahomes, if you can find that guy in the NFL draft, you give up whatever you got to get because it's the most important position in the world of football. In 2011, the NFL changed the pay structure, which you and I both supported. And to our credit, we were talking about it back then. They needed to change it. To now you can pick a quarterback, but it costs so much to move up to get an elite guy that you don't get a second chance if you're wrong. So if you're convinced, I remember you and I talking right after the Bears selected Mitchell Trubisky. And I said at the time, this was a terrible pick. But if you're convinced he's the next, then you go do this. And I said, only time's going to prove it. I think he's a bust. I don't think he's going to be the franchise guy. We proved to be right. If Tom Telesco and Antonio Pierce through the process think they find that guy, then you do mortgage your future to buy your present. But if he's not, you've mortgaged your future, bought your present was a failure, and you're gone. Now, a couple days ago on the podcast, I referenced one of your favorite lines by Bill Parcells about selecting a quarterback. And I did not quote it because I said, I'll wait till Friday and let Johnny tell him. So tell everyone, what is that thing that you love that Bill Parcells says?
Well, I mean, there's a bunch, and for those unfamiliar, there used to be a set of criteria that Parcells would have, but included in that criteria are a couple things maybe don't apply anymore, such as being, I think, a 3-year starter, but size of the quarterback is one of the more important things. There's like a minimum size requirement that Parcells has. I think that's become more important in the NFL as everything has gotten bigger, faster, and stronger. And I actually think it's more important now that we're seeing a default setting for the quarterback be a guy that is essentially dual threat. Doesn't mean he has to run like Fields or like Josh Allen, but you have to be able to run. There's no more just standing there Peyton or Eli Manning style quarterbacks. So I hope that's it, dealing with the size, but there is that little list of criteria that Parcells had.
And the number of passes. He was huge on that.
Yes.
That you got.
Go yeah, go ahead. The number of passes they actually threw, and I can't remember if there's a completion percentage element, but they had to have actually done enough on the field at the major college level to really be evaluated.
Right. Now, you and I remember this because you and I were doing this at the time, but when Brian Hoyer was coming out at Michigan State, I got a call from somebody in the Patriots organization that said Bill really liked Brian, thought he was a 12-year player in the NFL. He ended up playing longer than that. And that he had 70 drop passes at Michigan State that should have been caught. And you remember this. They said most NFL teams are not going to watch the film that closely. They're going to look at completion percentages and say, all right, he's not for us. We watch it all. We love him. We think he's going to go as a UDFA, which is undrafted free agent, but we want him. And I remember passing that word on to Brian and his dad, Axel, saying, hey, I'd really keep your eyes out for the Patriots. Bill Belichick loves you. I told him the 70 passes that were dropped, and look what happened. He ended up going there, having a long career in the NFL, and and still under contract, by the way. So I think those are important things because I'm not against moving up, but you have to make sure as a talent evaluator, you can't miss. Because if you miss, you're in a world of hurt because you better make sure that is your guy. Because if it's not, you won't get a second chance, will you?
Well, you just said the magic word, hurt. And that's like the one exception to this. If you somehow draft Jalen Hurts also, which just bailed the Eagles out of years, the Eagles would still be a mess from going with Carson Wentz and sticking with him. So unless you find a way to bail yourself out, yeah, you're toast. And what we've seen too often are guys that are underprepared to play quarterback at the NFL level who have been drafted. Not to pick on Trubisky, but we see this happen. If you're the Raiders and you're scanning the field of who you can draft, I like to keep the thought in mind. You're going to draft a quarterback. Default, every single draft, you should expect your NFL team to draft a quarterback because in almost all of them from here forward, they are incentivized to do so because of the way that salary cap works, because of the rookie scale. So you have that in mind. Now, of the quarterbacks available, how many of those could absolutely be completely game changing? I'm not sure that there's more than a couple. I'm actually not sure that Caleb Williams is by far and wide clearly the number one option over Drake May. I don't know. The professionals with the Raiders and all the other organizations, and they really must be professional. That's the point of what Hondo's talking about here. You got to turn over all the rocks. You got to watch all the film. You got to get inside, talk to people that were with these players practicing off season, in season. The whole picture you've got to get, because the teams that don't do that, they're the ones that end up most likely with a flopperoo, and it doesn't work well. Now let's look at the guys that are in this Super Bowl. Do you think that the 49ers did a good bit of research on Brock Purdy? I think they did. Part of the reason is, look who's coaching and running that franchise. And another great example, of course, is Brian Hoyer. Folks, when he was coming out, there was, this guy's got one of the best arms in the draft. And then somebody else was saying this guy doesn't have enough arm strength. It was all over the board. And the reason that it was all over the board was not everybody, at least in media, had the information that the Patriots and maybe a couple other teams had, that this is a guy that may be able to play and be a productive player at the NFL for a very long time. He's a great example of a humongous overachiever as far as you look at who came in with his draft class and who played as long as they have and who's still playing. It's just the bottom line. And also is a great comparison because this is literally a guy that was not drafted. Hundreds of players taken ahead of him. They're all long gone. What are some of the things that New England saw when they turned over the rocks, when they saw drop balls, when they saw performance before the snap, when they saw ability to communicate and lead, that made them realize, hey, this is a guy that can play? Apply that to what's coming up in the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. And again, you have a kind of blueprint for how do we figure out what guys can be that guy. I'm sure that's what the Raiders have begun doing, and they must do it effectively. You do not want any surprises. There's a lot of guys we can look back on in history and pick on, and I don't know that it's their fault. Whether it's a guy that had the yips, whether it's a guy that couldn't command a locker room, whether it's a guy that imploded in many ways, not necessarily all the players' fault. The responsibility is on the organizations to do it. Parcells is a great blueprint for doing it. And man, if I was Santonio Pierce or if I was somebody with the Raiders, I would probably give a call and see if he would tell us what he thought about just, hey, what have you seen just based on what you've seen in the college quarterbacks? Because there's a good chance that in a 5-10 minute conversation, you're going to get a piece of information that nobody else is going to mention or say the entire time you're researching the draft class for the upcoming draft.
Now, John, you'll remember this. A lot of our listeners won't because I wasn't covering the Raiders at the time. But when San Francisco took Trey Lance, like, you know what? I was covering the Raiders at the time. But when San Francisco took Trey Lance, we talked about, I was told it was people above John Lynch that wanted him. That John Lynch thought it was a mistake to go with Trey Lance. But that's, so I'm using that because that's why they picked Purdy. But I wanted people to understand that's the only way you survive a big pick like that and fail, is if it's made by people above you, like an owner that says, this is who I want. Now, yesterday was my first mock draft for 2024. And I had the Raiders taking J.J. McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback, in the second round. I talked with a scout of a team that does not need a quarterback, a very successful team. And they said that they think McCarthy is undervalued because he comes from a running system at Michigan, but they have him as one of 2 quarterbacks with a first-round grade, only 2. And they have him at number 2. They're only one other quarterback they have ahead of him. And so I said to him, do you think it's fair for me in my first mock to have JJ going here? And he goes, based on today's value, yes. He goes, but I'm telling you, when we get to April and people have time to really watch him in pro days and workouts, he goes, he's going in the first round. But he goes, at today's value, yes, that's why. It amazes me some teams, and I'm going to go back and re-say it this way. Had a general manager tell me one time, and I've told you this story privately, so you know who I'm talking about. Tell me there's a reason certain teams are always picking in the top half of the draft. They have bad scouting systems, of which Champ Kelly came in and revamped the Raiders, thank God for the Raiders. But he goes, they have a bad scouting system, or they're poorly coached or poorly run. This is going to be a fascinating draft with me because I think there's a lot of players in this draft that are going to go early that have huge bust potential. I'm everyone. I want to go back. Every team I'm talking to who are perennial good drafters are telling me they think Williams is way overrated. I find that funny because there's a lot of teams that really love him. But a lot of, but the Raiders love Jamarcus Russell too. And look how that turned out. John, talk to me about following those teams who are perennially good drafters.
New England had a really good run with drafting on a regular basis that was good. The Steelers have had pretty good drafts overall. The Ravens, how many like late round picks for the Ravens show up on a defensive line and look like they're almost an all pro? I mean, whether they know we need to get linemen from Utah, it really is a consistent thing. On the other end, we saw the Detroit Lions struggle for many, many years. They went on a wide receiver run there for a while. They maybe had people from above calling the shots, etc. So we've seen a different mix. I mean, you can go way back and point at success. I don't remember the then Redskins having as much draft success as much free agent success with Bobby Beathard. But the Giants obviously got guys on a consistent basis that could play. And right now, you look at teams like the Eagles that have drafted well when the right people have been making those calls. 10 years ago or so, you talked about the Packers being so loaded that people wanted guys off their practice squad. And we've seen some wild card nearly mistakes. We talked on this show about how bad and how damaging the Trey Lance pick could be. And now we have the 49ers in the Super Bowl. Well, what happens if they lose the Super Bowl because there's a guy out there playing that maybe shouldn't be there if they had taken somebody else with that draft pick? Is that going to stand out as like the thorn that really clipped him up? The interesting thing to me also about the Lance thing is they got Purdy also. It reminds me of something about 8 years before when the then Redskins took Robert Griffin and then Kirk Cousins later on down the road. So the idea of taking two quarterbacks is not completely foreign. If there is somebody out there, and maybe it's not a horrible idea, maybe it's an idea that's already being kicked around with a really high draft pick that says, we're going to take this guy, but we're also going to back it up either with an undrafted free agent or with a later round quarterback, I don't think you should be opposed to that idea. And if your quarterback taken in the top 5 picks of the draft or however high, if he has a problem with that, you may have taken the wrong guy to begin with that high, because the level of competition at the NFL level, it should be the highest and greatest and best. This is not the place of complacency. This is not the place where you are just gifted greatness. How many guys have we seen roll in thinking that was going to be the way it was, and splat, they went as far as their career goes. So when you look at guys that have drafted effectively, and we've got a couple in that Super Bowl coming, obviously Andy Reid's extraction of talent and ability to pick guys that can play effectively at the NFL is off the charts. What people in the sport that separates really the really good drafters from the rest, I think, is that they know what they're looking for. They know what they need to evaluate to figure it out, and they go get it whenever they want. whenever they can. The Jimmy Johnson draft board. I would love to see just 1 year draft board for Jimmy Johnson. Just give me 1 year, like show me a picture of the board. And when we see where guys are actually picked, and if somebody analyzed like how successful they were across the sport, I imagine that Jimmy's draft board and mock draft would be a little bit better than the average one that's out there from somebody across the 30 plus franchises, or how many there were at the time that he made those draft boards.
Now, for people that don't know, our mock draft every year is very accurate. We were the only team that had the only mock draft. In fact, I got on Mike and Mike at the time because we were the only mock draft that had Tim Tebow going in the first round and had him going to the right team, by the way. But we asked several NFL people for their. Now, we don't let them, or we don't ask them to do anything with their team, but we ask a bunch of people, tell us, what you're hearing, what you think, et cetera, and how the draft's going to fall. So that's there. Okay, John, let's get to Super Bowl week. You don't even know the amount of frustration in Raider Nation to watch the Super Bowl in their house with their two arch rivals, San Francisco from the Bay, Kansas City from the AFC West. John, Raider Nation is hurting. Offer them some balm for the wound.
It's going to sting a little bit. Now, somebody, could it be worse? I don't know if it could be any worse. Would it be worse if it was the Broncos? Would it? Probably not. Could it be worse than literally across the bay? No. The Rams wouldn't. No. I think the balm is it's the inspiration. We've just turned and closed a chapter for the Raiders. You've closed a chapter. A new chapter is here. There's nothing more inspiring than seeing the Super Bowl in your town with your two biggest arch rivals. There should be no lack of motivation or inspiration or drive anywhere in the Raiders building. If there is, that's somebody that's probably going to be replaced. The guys leading the franchise now are not blind. They've got their eyes wide open. They're going to be involved to some extent with what's going on. They're probably getting, maybe questions about the building or questions about a couple different things from people that are heading there to play and coach and work. This can be used as fuel to drive. This can be used as fuel to drive. It can also be used as fuel to point to. Antonio Pierce and company, they've got to lead their team. We don't know exactly the makeup of the 24 team, but we're going to know pretty soon. And the process of building it has kind of already begun. So this gives them something to point to and something to lead, something to push, something to make sure that everybody is not trying to do it all in one day, because you can't. But everybody involved in the Raiders, they know what the goal is they're working towards. It's literally right down the street. And if there's somebody that maybe doesn't quite get it or think this is just great to be a professional football player and I'm just going to kind of cruise, I have a feeling that those days are done for the Raiders. We've seen some bad things, unfortunately, happen around the Raiders since they've been in Las Vegas. It's time to put all that behind and go forward and get back to doing what needs to be done to become a model franchise of the league. So you go up the boulevard, you look across, you see the Super Bowl. If I'm Antonio Pierce, I imagine he's communicating some things to his players to let them know, you see that? That's the darn goal. I have been there. I know how to get there. We are going to get there. But you need to keep in mind that what's going over there across the street in our town, this is not just a party. This is a professional peak. Let's do what we have to do to get there. This is a different attitude than we've seen in the past. And I think it's going to continue the momentum that is behind this franchise and behind the team. The Raiders' momentum is right now is begun with their team. You don't see players make such bold calls about, we want this guy to be the coach. You don't see them react to a coaching change the way they did. So this momentum is starting from inside and it's going to spread out. And this Super Bowl experience around them is going to be something he can point at to keep that fire burning during the offseason.
All right, let's talk about the Pro Bowl, because to me, it's just a waste of time. It's a flag football game. Now, I understand the players, they don't want the physicality. Well, it's not worth getting injured in a Pro Bowl. I get it. I get it and agree with it. A flag football game to me is just stupid. So if you want to get together and do a skills competition, great. But to me, I just think make it an honor, call it the All Madden team, honor John Madden, just give an honor away, and cut the shenanigans. That way there isn't an alternate or this or that. Here are our Pro Bowl players from each conference. Be done with it. Agree or disagree?
Still agree. We've talked about this for more than a decade. Just to bring the folks up to speed, the right thing to do with the Pro Bowl is to name the team, have a 3-hour TV show, feature them all, talk to them all, praise them all. Plenty of people will watch it and wrap it up. There's no reason to play or do anything. I suppose this is it. We're at least halfway to that, but naming the team is the most important, and it can be a successful TV show. We don't need people running around backwards. There are plenty of us that remember the very unfortunate, I think Robert Edwards was his name, running back out of Georgia, playing in the Beach Bowl game that was during Super Bowl week. It pretty much a career altering injury. Nobody wants to see anything like that again. There's no reason to have guys running around doing anything. Name the team, build a TV show, move on to the next.
All right, Super Bowl. You've got a superstar in Patrick Mahomes, a Mr. Irrelevant and Brock Purdy. Could it get any more different other than maybe him being a UDFA for this draft?
No, not really. And the amazing thing about Pat Mahomes is, when he comes out and starts doing his thing, I'm like, it's almost like a guy's pitching. It's almost like he's a pitcher. But then I said, I think he's like, this is like a shortstop. He's like a shortstop.
Yes.
Fast forward to the Netflix quarterback series, and everybody gets excited. Those of us who thought he's a shortstop, he says, I'm like a shortstop, which is terrific. It's exactly what he is.
We've been saying it for years.
Yeah, and so that is a unique talent. Obviously, unique talent. Now, we're going to see people try to copy it and do other stuff, and we saw little flashes of it before in a Matt Stafford, different arm angles, that type of stuff, but this is different. There were a couple of the balls, a touchdown in the first half that he threw in the championship game. It was a perfect bullet because it was thrown only in a spot his guy could catch it and no one else could touch it, and it was the proper pace. It's like, it's like a video game. So you have him on the one hand, and then on the other hand, you have Brock Purdy, who looks like a system quarterback. And well, is that really true? Or are both of them system quarterbacks? What you have in Mahomes and Reed is a perfect combination of really genius on both ends. So would Mahomes be really good without Reed? Yes. Would Reed be really good without Mahomes? Without any question. We have seen that before. And I don't know that we'll see it again, but we've seen it. So you have a really perfect marriage. On the other end, you've got a quarterback and a head coach locked in. There for by and large, there's so many good things that Brock Purdy does to earn the trust of Kyle Shanahan, the respect of the guys on the team, and actually earn the ball and have success with it, that you can't deny it. So if you hear this narrative of system quarterback versus gunslinger, I don't think either of them are necessarily true. They're most likely and more likely both actually system quarterbacks than anything else. But let's see how many guys talking on TV and on the internet notice or realize that versus people that are actually inside of the sport that, correct me if I'm wrong, they already know that.
John, I was talking to an NFL executive yesterday about we're going to go on a fishing trip after the draft. And we were just chatting about our trip or whatever. And I mentioned to him, we were talking about Andy Reid. And I said to him, I think Andy's the best coach in the NFL right now. And he corrected me and he goes, I think he's the best coach ever. I said, what? I go, how can you say that over Belichick? Listen to what he told me, because he has immense respect. I think you know who I'm talking about, but but he has immense respect for Belichick. He says, what has Belichick done without Brady? Go look at Cleveland. Go look at everywhere he's been without Brady, where he's been the head guy. He's been mediocre at best. He said Andy Reid has done it with multiple quarterbacks and been among the best. And he goes, you take Brady away from Belichick, nobody wanted him this year. Couldn't get a job. He says, you take Andy Reid and put him on the market right now. He said he could have had any job he wanted in the NFL. I'm a guy who always says, show me the trophies. But I'm not sure I agree with the guy, but I don't think I can disagree with him either. That's a pretty bold statement. What do you think of that?
It's a pretty bold statement. It might be a little bit ahead of its time. It's sometimes hard to evaluate when things are in real time. So win, lose, there's no draw in the Super Bowl, but win or lose this time, I don't think this is Andy Reid. This may not be his last trip to the Super Bowl. There may be more coming. Andy Reid has an argument to be made that he's the best professional head coach of all time already. If he adds another trophy or two, then you're really going to see that, especially when he's done coaching, because it's just the nature of it. We tend to not, with coaches, you don't necessarily tend to appreciate them as much when they're doing it in real time. Reid's success is so wide. You have a couple things that stand out. You have something that compares a little bit to Joe Gibbs, and that Gibbs won 3 different Super Bowls, 3 different quarterbacks, and none of them necessarily outstanding. Reid has taken 2 franchises to play in and 4 Super Bowls with 2 outstanding quarterbacks, one, clear Hall of Famer. That counts for a lot. We don't know what would have happened in Cleveland had all the mess around the NFL not happened there, but in Cleveland, but you can't apply that. So Belichick's record is what it is, and it's very unlikely that it's going to change much. I don't know how many years he wants to coach from here or what kind of success there will be, and that takes nothing away from him. But yes, as we get this drumbeat going to this Super Bowl, and I think as soon as this offseason, you're going to see more people say and look at this record and say, you know what? This guy may be better than Parcells. He may be better than Gibbs. He may be better than Belichick. He may actually be, all in all, the best professional head coach that there is. And it's not just play calling. Any focus on his offensive prowess in Philadelphia has now been really completely supported across the board. There's not even close to a weak spot in Andy Reid, and what I think he's got is his football brain is bigger and faster than everybody else's. He reminds me a bit of Drew Brees at the college level. So Drew Brees is at Purdue. He's doing everything so quick. It's just carving up everybody. Magic between Joe Tiller and Drew Brees. Just boom. Brees is asked Saban, thought he was the best college quarterback he ever saw. Just unreal. And then, of course, great success in the NFL. Andy Reid seems like he's got an edge. And I think it's just a combination of incredible brain power and experience, because just look at what he was able to do against the Ravens and how many things that he called at the right times. And and you're talking about going up against the Ravens and John Harbaugh and a really good defense and a tremendous franchise. And they plain got him. They got him when they had less talent. They got him when they had less momentum. They got him when they probably shouldn't have. That's why you saw such frustration from the Ravens when that thing was over. They're like, they got us. And that starts at the top. This is an absolute masterclass genius professional football coach. I'm sure he could coach at any level. We have probably been a little bit asleep at just how good Andy Reid is.
100% agree with you. No argument for me, John. All right, next week, I'm going to get your Super Bowl prediction. But for now, John, great stuff. I just want to quickly say your thoughts on the Tom Telesco hire.
It's interesting. I really want to see what lessons he has taken from his experience with the Chargers, and really before that too, but especially with the Chargers. I want to know what he is going to take from the Chargers, take what lessons he's going to take and apply them to the Raiders. Obviously, too soon for any of us to know what direction this is going, but we've got to see everybody aligned going in the same direction. You've seen some people around the league already getting tossed. You've seen some people talking to the some of the reporters. Look at that big Jets article. You've seen some mess out there. You cannot have that. You cannot have that. So if there's any of that within the Raider organization, he's got to be the guy to help identify it and get it out of there. So I'm interested to see how all this staff, everything shakes out and lines up, because everybody has got to be going in the same direction, and they have to be getting there as fast as they can.
I agree. He's the one and only, the great John Shop. John, I want to make sure I get this right. We want to thank Arnold and Stockton for winning the shoes. Thank you for watching, Arnold. Thanks to all of you who participated. We will be doing more giveaways. I promise. By the way, super quick, I am coming to San Antonio, Texas, February 20th from 6 to 7:30. Go on my social media. You can find all the information about it. You have to RSVP. Seating is limited, but it's 100% free. I would love to meet you, shake hands with you. Hour and a half of free Raider talk from your beat writer. Appreciate you all. Make sure you join me there. You can follow me on Instagram at Hondo Carpenter, on X, formerly known as Twitter. When you go to Hondo wait. Instagram is Hondo SR. X, formerly known as Twitter, is Hondo Carpenter. Join us there. Go to si.com/NFL/Raiders. That's where you get all of our articles. We're going to have probably 12 articles just today. Nobody gives you more for free. Make sure you're checking it out. Also, upper right-hand corner, you can click on the newsletter. We don't spam you. We don't sell your information. 3 emails a week with all of our stuff, 100% free, so you never miss another big story. John, people are going to be disappointed you didn't start with a riff. So can I get your word next week? You'll start with a riff.
Got a little tune for you. A little tune, either a riff like we did last time or a little tune. Either one. It's ready.
I didn't know there's a difference. I'm not a guitar player. So whatever you choose, will you do something next week?
Oh, yeah, it's Super Bowl week. Yes, we will.
All right. He is the one and only, the great one, the great Johnny Job. And we appreciate him and all that he does. Thanks for watching us today, everybody. Appreciate you.